Hello and welcome to the False Peak Alaska podcast. I am your host, Jordan Anderson. I am a solo backpack hunter and an Alaska adventure enthusiast. Do a lot of fishing here in Alaska, as well as, archery and rifle hunting. Mostly we do it together, me and my cousin. He will be joining me on each episode. That's Brandon Anderson from McGregor, Minnesota. I am originally from Grand Rapids, Minnesota, but I've been living up here in Alaska for the last 20 years as a local chainsaw carver and adventure enthusiast. So with that being said, I just wanted to mention I get all my archery equipment from Full Curl Archery, which they are putting on a Alaska Archery Challenge out at the Grouse Ridge Shooting Park. And let me see if I can pull up that address real quick. It's 6967 East Texel Drive. 6967 East Texel Drive. That's June 1st and 2nd out there at the Grouse Ridge Shooting Park. So basically, I think it's $45 to enter. I don't know if they've changed that or bumped it up to $50. I can't remember, but you basically get a raffle ticket for your entry, and I think more are available, and you can get basically Matthew's bow. I think they're giving away a dart and bow this year as well, with some arrows, some more door prizes and whatnot. And then they are giving away some optics from Kowa. So I'm really excited about it. Me and my cousin Brandon will be there at the event June 1st and 2nd, and I believe it starts at 8 a.m. So yeah, get in there and bring your bow, get it all tuned up at Full Curl Archery, and get ready for the Alaska Archery Challenge. I wanted to mention too, I'm not some self-proclaimed great white hunter. I have been successful on a lot of my bow hunts now that I've been doing it for quite a while. I'm only 38 years old, so there's a lot of journey left, and we wanted to bring a lot of that to you and bring you straight up from the truth, right from our real life experience up here, so you really know what to expect should you come up here on a hunting or fishing, camping trip of any kind. What to deal with in the rain, how to set up, your camp, and, kind of give you some makeshift advice on what to do there. So without further ado, here's the first episode. Hello, welcome to the False Peak Alaska podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Anderson, and I'm here to talk about Alaskan hunting adventures and fishing adventures, as well as other outdoor enthusiastic activities, like also solo backpack hunting. And a lot of it will be based on archery because that's what I really love to do. But we do have a couple of rifle hunts in there that we want to talk about as well. But without further ado, we'll get right into the story. And this is kind of my journey to become a sheep hunter. So I've got my cousin Brandon right here. He's my main guy, man. He's like the craziest backpacker you'll have, and I could not ask for a better hunting partner, honestly, because we've both hunted whitetails in Minnesota growing up. We have kind of a little bit of the same background, mentality towards hunting. So we're really kind of on the same page. We're family. We kind of like a few of the same things. And we just kind of ended up, falling into place, with this alpine hunting endeavor. So without further ado, Brandon Anderson, tell me about yourself just a little bit. People want to know where you came from and how you got into this whole journey.
Yeah, born and raised in Minnesota, and a handful of years ago came up and started doing some hunting with Jordan and just fell in love with it. And at that point, I just had to do everything I could to get myself relocated up here, and I finally made that a reality. Just now, I am a resident of Alaska now, ready to enjoy all them resident tags, and I can be done being a pack mule for Jordan here.
That's a big reason why I think you ended up just wanting to be a pack mule, because it's just so much money to spend on tags and stuff. And then if you want to do the real big hunts up here, like goat and sheep and all the others, it's like you got to have a guide, and then it's like this crazy huge expense. So you were able to go with me on a few of these hunts, and big takeaway is like the physical aspect of it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I feel so fortunate to have just even pack for you. I mean, it's all knowledge,
yeah,
accumulating
so
for me.
well. Yeah, I mean,
so-
you fell right into place with it, and I mean, you kind of put me in my place a little bit as far as the physical aspect of it goes in the beginning. I showed you a lot of these places, and yeah, I had some mental toughness for a few days here and there. But the thing was, is I wasn't quite in shape, so that's kind of where my journey there started. But man, you did crazy things, like you hiked a water tower. Like, how did that come about? Or was it a fire tower?
Fire tower,
fire
yeah.
tower. I keep
Well,
forgetting
there's
that.
there's just not a whole lot of elevation to be gained in Minnesota for training purposes. So I took that fire tower as an opportunity to gain some elevation, and so yeah, one time I looked up how tall it was and figured, I got to climb this thing like 56 times to gain a mile of elevation, and I got to it. I think it took me 6.5
Did anybody
hours.
see you doing this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a touristy thing. There ain't a whole lot going on in McGregor, Minnesota. So yeah, people
No, there's not.
will go climb the fire tower to say they climbed the fire tower. Go up and down.
But not 56.
Yeah, so
With how much? 50 pounds?
yeah, I had
Oh,
a
man.
50-pound bag of sand strapped in the pack.
Wait a second. How tall was it again? How many flights of stairs?
I can't remember how many flights of stairs, but I mean it was basically 100 feet tall. So,
That is insane, man.
ultimately the math puts 56 times up and down at a mile of elevation gain.
Yeah, I just got done doing the Chub Challenge, the elk-shaped Chub Challenge. Dan State put that out there. So I did that, and I did the Chad workout. So I loaded my backpack up with 50 pounds and did that, and I was just like, dude, that was crazy. I mean, at 300 steps, up this box, and I think about that, and I ended up making it to 1,000 steps in under an hour. Sure, that was great, but it was so intense, and I was starting to think about how the heck did you do that?
Yeah.
Because that was well over what I did. Because doing the math, you're doing maybe 2,000 feet on a 20-inch box. For 1,000 steps, but you did it, and you calculate how many feet was that total for 56 laps
Or,
on the fire tower.
well, I mean, it was a mile of elevation gain, so like 5,400 feet, But yeah, that's what I had to work with as far as getting my legs in mountain shape for Alaska.
Yeah, that's another level. That's like a less than 1% of people would even think about doing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'd have to talk me into it for a while to get me to even start. But hey, now I'm doing the crazy stuff, and we actually, got some, good hunts going on, and we drew a few tags this year, so we got some awesome hunts coming up. But we're gonna switch things up a little bit. I was asking the questions to begin with to introduce you. Now we're gonna kind of go through my story. So you got some questions for me?
Sure. So a big one for me is, we've done the blacktail thing, the black bear hunting, and then what got you into sheep hunting? How did you find this archery tag to even apply for?
Okay, so yeah, that was the first hunt that we went on, and that archery tag came about because I knew about the Chugach, and I talked to Dave Stodart over there at the Full Curl Archery, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you got to do the Eklutna tag," and I was like, "Well, I mean, what's the success rate over there?" "Oh, well, less than 1%," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, "But what about this Chugach tag?" Because I saw the Chugach, DS-140 Doll Sheep tag, and I had watched Cameron Haynes and Roy Roth do their thing up Pioneer Peak, but I knew that I have, because I live in Bird Creek, I've been hiking back in there a little bit, but not all the way back in, and I know that, I had seen on some of my previous hikes, when I was in my teen years, I think it was 18, 19, and, I was looking for a moose back in there back then when it was okay to do that. Still might be, but at any event, I saw some sheep back there, and I saw some pretty good rams. So I decided to apply for that tag, and I ended up getting it. First year I applied, and I took a buddy of mine out there, and it was just one of those things where I had trained all summer, and I was ready to get in there. Was I ready for a full sheep hunt? Maybe, maybe not. But like that was my first attempt at it, and I just ended up having to kind of help my buddy more than myself, and that's not what you want on a sheep hunt. Which is like, hey, kudos to him for trying. I mean, it was an eye opener for him and also for me. So, thing is just I needed to get in even better shape than I was back then, and that was, man, how many years ago? It's like 4 years ago. That was, I think, 2020. Yeah, and then what was it? 2022. Yeah, so the next year I tried applying for the tag again. Didn't realize that if you won it before, you couldn't get it for a year, something like that. I don't know what the exact rules are, but then I drew the tag again, and then luckily you were with me, and we got back in there. And what was weird about that is might hold off from starting on that right away, because the feeling going into that hunt, I was kind of terrified, but we'll get back to that. But what got me into sheep hunting in the first place, like I grew up like watching these videos and stuff like that, and I was always told the holy grail is getting a Dall sheep, the pinnacle of big game animals, the most difficult, whatever. And my uncle always talked about it. My uncle was an archery hunter, Eric Anderson, and he recently passed away on a mule deer hunt with his son, and it was a sad day for me because it's kind of like my childhood hero is gone now. But what he left behind was something special, and that was somebody to get inspired by and look up to. He was just this, I mean, to me, he was like God, man, like this awesome hunter. Went out west and killed elk with his bow, and then got a couple of big ones with his rifle, big mule deer, stuff like that. So I always loved to hear his stories. And then he ended up talking about Dall sheep, and that was one that he would love to go hunt Dall sheep one day. But he was like, oh my God, he's like, it's going to be the most insane pack out ever, And at that point in time, I was just a whitetail hunter, and so moving up to Alaska, got to see some new country and stuff like that. And so in recent years, we've done a little bit of black-tailed deer hunting, and kind of fell in love with the alpine a little bit, and I was like, maybe this dream of Dall sheep hunting isn't as far-fetched as I thought it might be, and then, got the tag, like I said, failed the first time with a buddy of mine to even really get in there, which was kind of sad, didn't really do the tag justice. And then luckily enough, we were able to draw the tag again and went in there, and, we had gone on a goat hunt. I took a fall, and then we got onto the sheep hunt and got dropped off. And on the way to that, for some reason, it's like you fight with these mental things all the time. Like it's just the mental fortitude of the situation, maybe when you're on the hunt, or maybe something's going on in your life beforehand, but you just need to escape from that and get out there. But man, from that fall on that goat hunt, like I just had an injured backside from that hunt, and I had kind of like a little third butt cheek, sticking out, and you were with me on that one. So we can, go through that whole story sometime, but back on to the sheep hunt. Like, I just felt like, man, I'm setting myself up for, this is going to be really hard. And I really don't want to fail. I want to give this tag its due justice, get all my stuff together. So we, what did you do? You packed a bunch of pemmican right before the trip.
Yeah, that was the hunt.
You made like a ton of that, and then we had just pretty much mountain houses, chili mac, like all the good stuff. We had our sleeping pads. I had a Neo Air. I had you had this sawtooth. That was the first hunt with a sawtooth.
Yeah, I went and bought that right before the hunt.
Yeah, Kifaru sawtooth was a good tent to have. I mean, it was great for the room, and luckily enough on that hunt we had good weather. So, even so, without the liner in that, tent, the wind whipped around and kind of got on us and whatnot. So, yeah, we got in there. But, yeah, we got to the first kind of knoll, and it was a little bit windy, so we were just like, oh, let's just sit here first and sleep there, and then get up over the ridge to the open area tomorrow, and then we get back in there and kind of get set up for the second night. And what was it? We see this guy coming down the hill, and I'm like, this is the last thing I want. Like, I have some confidence in my hunting abilities, but it's like, now I've got a guy coming into my valley that, it's not like it's not accessible. There was a trail right to it. So there's this Wolverine-looking dude wearing these bibs coming down, and he's got a nice Matthews bow on his backpack, and comes right up to us, and he's like, hey, guys, you got the same tag? He's like, oh, man, it's just great and cool, the opportunities we have up here to come back here. And he was all smiles, just to go on a solo hunt for Dall sheep, and yeah, this is going to be great. And he was like, you guys want to hunt this valley, or you want to hunt together, or whatever? And I was just like, in my mind, initially, I was like, yeah, I want to hunt with this guy. But, not knowing him, not knowing where he's from, or whatever, just kind of got a little bit of a backstory from where he was from. He's from Sitka. His name's Logan Evans. And I didn't know it at the time, but this guy's just a, Wolverine of a sheep hunter.
Stone cold killer.
Stone cold killer, man. Yeah, he's straight up, just stinking goat of sheep hunting, And anyways, initial thought was, yeah, I should hunt with this guy. But then I was like, nah, like I want to, do my thing. But he ended up wanting to, run off, down the hill. And I was like, how far are you going? He's like, oh, I'm just going to run until the sun goes down. I'm just like, made me feel like 2 inches tall, because I was like, man, we went up this valley 7 miles and stopped and then set up camp and then farted around, and then next valley a mile back, another mile. And we're like, oh, let's just camp here because, I want to look around, which wasn't a bad decision looking back on it. I mean, really wasn't bad at all, because we saw sheep the next day. But anyways, Logan's like, yeah, I'm just going to run off till the sunset. And I was like, okay. And then off he went and disappeared. We never saw him again for the next 3 days. And, so he sat there, and, we're hearing ptarmigan at night, and we're joking about all the weird noises they were making and what they were doing. And he's like, you got to get out there and shoot one of those things. So, yeah, this is one of the coolest things about hunting back in those areas. It's like, it's not about just, fixate on the, single animal that you're looking for. It's like, hey, bring a few extra arrows with you, have some fun with it, just take the whole experience in. Mm-hmm. So, walking through that hunt, I was pretty confident with my bow skills, but, the one thing that's hard about bow hunting for sheep is that you're pushing yourself to this next level and this go thing. And yes, sheep hunters with rifle talk about it all the time, but what they don't really talk about a lot of is the close proximity after pushing your body to the next level. So it's like, hurry up and stop, So it's like, coming from Minnesota, yeah, sure, I know how to sit somewhere and be quiet. But after you've huffed and puffed, down a valley, up a valley, down a valley, up a valley, cross a creek, up a valley, and then you're like, now it's time to get on this animal now, and then get in proximity. And then once you're in the red zone of 300 yards, be patient and quiet and not want to move. It's hard to dial in that speedometer down to zero and just leave it there and be patient, because, man, that is just the hardest thing to do. And that's kind of, what we tried to do. And, we went to the next valley over and got buzzed out by brown bears. Yeah. Yeah.
My first time actually seeing brown bears out there in the wild, and thankfully they were at a good distance. But
yeah, that was a crazy scree slope that we went up with snow and stuff, and you weren't used to it, and you were just like, I don't want to be up here. And then it was like we get up there, and it was just kind of all for naught because there was a giant cornice up there that I just wasn't comfortable with pushing it over. It probably would have been fine, but it was just like, you don't want that to fall on you and that be your story. So we turned around, got back out of there, and just get down to the valley, and happy to get down to the bottom back to our packs. And I was like, what's that over there? And you hear this, and I was just like, whoa, I know what that is. And you look up, there's this like cave, like it was like out of the movie Edge, you know what I mean, where there's like this cave and a waterfall, and this giant, grizzly bear comes out, a big old brown sow, a couple cubs, it comes out of there, and they're running all over the side of the hill. So he sat there and just kind of watched them for a little bit. I don't know what you were thinking at that time.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably 400 yards away at that point, and yeah, we just wanted to pack our bags and then get out of there. And they were just kind of playing around on the side of the mountain, but they were working their way down towards us and fairly quickly. I think they were probably 200 yards away when at the closest, but
once we started getting out of there, they were pretty darn close to us.
Yeah,
and I was just like, let's just clack our trekking poles together so we know they know we're here, and make sure we're not startling them so she doesn't come charging in. But there's a lot of bears in the Chugach in October. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that was plenty close for me.
Yep.
Come to think of it, where we set up camp, I mean.
So we buzzed out of there, and I don't know what was wrong with me. I was getting all kinds of weird, saying all kinds of gibberish and getting emotional because we had just gone up that crazy chute and then back down to the bottom, and I was just like getting cold, and I was like, oh, I need to get water, and I get all this stuff, and just started talking about how I need to be a good dad and all this stuff in the tent. And then you were just like, what are you crying about? And I'm like, I'm not crying. And it was like, geez, man. I mean, it was just testing my limits for some reason that day. And then I was like, all right, I just got to get to sleep and then get a better attitude in the morning. And that night, it was kind of a windy night, a little bit, down in the bottom. Got up the next morning, and then made breakfast, coffee, whatever, and then light was starting to come out a little bit, and then I got my binos up and I spotted a sheep across the creek and up the valley, and got my spotter on it, and sure enough, it was a nice big ram, about 7/8 curl, almost full curl. And not super heavy or anything, but for a bow, it's like, hey, anything that's legal, with a bow, especially if it's close to full curl, I was thinking, man, this is a dream ram. And tried to get up there the first night and took the wrong route around the mountain, and crossed the creek in the bottom first, a bunch of moose trails down there, so it wasn't too bad to get through to the other side. But then we got to the mountain and came back around the back side of it, and could not find him. We just just in the wrong type of spot. There was a pinnacle rock in between us and kind of a sketchy sheep trail to get to him, and it's like a no fall zone, and it was like if you fell there you were gonna fall 1,000 feet. So I was like, dude, we gotta get back to camp and try to figure this thing out, know. So I was like, he should be there tomorrow, maybe, whatever. Let's go back to camp and try it again. Wind was right, going, blowing from the east right over the top of us, and stayed right there.
Well, on our way back to camp that night, we went up and kind of got a different vantage point, and we were actually able to locate him again that evening.
Oh, that's right. We came up that chute on the back side.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So we confirmed he was there. That was awesome.
Yep. And then I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with this. We can sleep here, and then maybe get on him the next morning. And got up there and put my sheep suit on, thinking I was going to use that thing, and that thing got tore up halfway through the hike in after him, and we just kind of worked that ridge line, and the ridge line was just like, I wasn't too sure about it, and it was pretty sketchy. I mean, there was some spots in there. You slip, you were donezo. But we got over, and I was like, he's gonna be right over this next little plateau. If we get down to this little field, he's across, and there's one more little peak to get across, and he's right there. I knew he was there, but I just didn't want to go over that and slip on the rocks and cause a ruckus and, destroy everything. Hindsight's 2020. That's what I should have done. I should have just walked right up to that top of that little peaked edge, kneeled up on top there, found a nice uncomfortable spot to shoot off of. It might have been only 50 yards on that point, but I basically was like, no, he's not going to be there. And then I came back to you, and we sat there for a second, and I was like, I'm going to check out this little chute that's off to the left. There's this outcropping that I could get a better vantage point. So I went out there once, didn't see anything, came back, and then I talked to you for a minute. It's like, oh, we just need to be patient and sit here for a few minutes. And so 2 minutes passed by, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get out there and look again. So I get out there and on that little outcropping and just kind of creep slowly so I can see around this rock to where this sheep might be. And, just to give you a view, there was basically this black rock pinnacle, and then there was white patches of snow, and then the ridge line. And we remember seeing him in the white patches, and I was kind of looking for him in there. But as you creep out, more snow patches kind of appear. And before I could catch that ram's head, he was already looking at me, and he was one of the snow patches. And I was like, damn, he got me, And so he was only 100 yards, I think, at that point. And I've got a 100-yard pin. So I look back at Brandon while this sheep is staring at me, and I'm frozen. And you're sitting there playing around with your phone. I don't know. I think you were looking at maps.
I was looking at Onyx.
You was looking
I wasn't playing Candy Crush.
I wasn't playing Candy Crush. Yeah, I doubt it. Oh, no. And I was just looking at him, staring at him. And I was like, I wonder if he's going to see me. I'm like glaring at you. And I know I can't say a noise, do anything. And I just reach for my rangefinder and just creep it up to my eye and click one off, and it said 120 on the sheep, and should have known better. It's just a dumb bow hunter mistake, man. Nerves, everything. And I was like, I want to send an arrow on this thing. I've only been practicing up to 100, but I thought maybe,
Yeah.
But what do you do? I mean, he's spotted. I wanted to sling an arrow out at this thing, so sent one out there, and it was calm. I had my bubble set perfectly. My release was there, and you actually caught my release on camera, because by that time you noticed something was up, because I was at full draw, and you were like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, he hit at full draw for no reason. Where we knew we were in the red zone.
Yeah, and then I let the arrow go, and it looked like the arrow flew perfect. Literally, it felt like the perfect shot. But problem is, that sheep was looking right at me, and he saw the arrow release. He ducked about 10 inches down and forward about a couple feet. I'm pretty sure where the arrow hit, he wasn't even there anymore by the time the arrow got there. So arc shot at 100 yards is something I don't recommend. And hey, happens to everybody. We make those choices sometimes. But I learned a lot on that first sheep hunt. That was a big learning curve. Then definitely one to where it's like, hey, if you're bow hunting, you got to be okay with missing, and keep going for it. Even though it was day 4 of the hunt, it was day 6 of the trip, day 4 of the actual hunt, and I was I was ready to bonk, man. I had pancake-sized blisters from the side hilling, and and you were looking at me like, well, if you want to go, I'm ready to go, because it's pretty obvious you're not going to kill anything. I think that's what you're probably thinking. I don't know.
Well, I was in it. It was your hunt, your tag. If you wanted to keep going, I was willing to keep going. But I was pretty heartbroken at that stock not going to plan as well.
Looking back on it now, I'm like, that should have been an absolute slam dunk.
Yeah.
It should have been just get to the rock, chill out for a second on top of the rock, peek over the edge, be quiet.
Yeah.
You find the sheep, get yourself in a position to shoot, and peek over the edge and whack them.
Yeah.
You know, that was not, yeah, oh man. So next time for sure. But, you know, all's not lost. We wanted to do a rifle hunt next year.
Yeah, I mean, that archery hunt, and that being the first sheep hunt that I've ever been a part of, that did a lot for me.
We got closer than about 85% of all sheep hunters would have.
I mean, we were in the red zone. You were able to fire an arrow off. I mean, had we had a rifle and that was a, you know, legal rifle hunt, I mean, that would have been a done deal. So it told us that we are capable. Just dial in, you know, eliminate a few of those mistakes, be a little more patient, do what you got to do. I mean, but it definitely told us that we were capable.
Yeah, and it was an archery tag, so you couldn't bring your rifle.
Yep.
But that would be the only advantage to ever bringing your bow on a sheep hunt is just for one of those tags, you know, because it's less people, you know, hunting back there and all that. But man, you know, yeah, there's no advantage to a bow, you know, for sheep hunting. But now it's my nemesis now, so I'm like, I'm all in with a bow this year. I'm going to kill a sheep with a bow.
Cool.
Taking him to the gun show.
Yeah. Not sure. You know, I'll have a tag in my pocket this year. I'm undecided on whether or not I'm taking a bow or a rifle. We'll see as the season approaches. But
well, you packed out my rifle sheep last year, and we'll probably go over that story. This was one where it was like, no, it didn't happen for us, you know, but brought a rifle out on the next hunt, and it ended up really working out.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really even grew up with the consideration of ever being a sheep hunter or even getting the single opportunity to do it. But yeah, once I was able to have that experience, it was just like all I can think about now.
It kind of ruined me a little bit the first time. I kind of ruined twice by sheep hunting, you know, because I actually got one this last time. But, you know, the bow hunt just didn't go as planned, and it was just like, man, that ate me up a little bit. But I told you one thing, and it was right, but it was the best thing that had happened to me to miss that sheep. Because honestly, looking back on what little effort I put into the training, I really deserve to kill a ram yet?
Yeah.
No, I was like, I don't know if I had really earned it or not. Mm-hmm. Would we have felt great about killing that thing? Of course we would have. But the thing is, it added more fuel. The rock got a little bit further uphill. You know, you got to push it uphill, and you know, find that carrot, you know, in the mountains. But yeah, it's a crazy journey. So now the thing is like, okay, now what do we do after that one? You know, now we get into the story of last year's 2023 sheep. And I needed to find a place to rifle hunt for sheep. And I know a couple guys that, you know, go to the Wrangles. I know some guys that go to the Brooks Range. And I'm just like, I really don't want to run into people. You know, I want to figure something out. I want to find kind of an unpopular area. You know what I mean? So, you know, but the Brooks Range is full of those. Wrangles, you know, full of those. So we ended up, you know, one of the two areas. Won't be specific, but... yeah, my story kind of goes back to to find, you know, this ram goes back to salmon fishing, ironically. And one of my buddies that, you know, does a lot of my, you know, milling, you know, he fishes down in Anchor Point, and this crazy dude got every color lure, you know, known to man and all this stuff. So like when I first got into fishing with him, I was like, this guy's just kind of crazy, right? Like he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just full of it. And, you know, had a story for every lure pretty much. And I was just like, well, maybe there's something true to it. You know, you never know. So I was fishing with my buddy Dave, the guy at the mill down there. And we, you know, caught a couple, you know, halibut or whatever. And then, you know, this guy comes over. I'm not going to mention his name, just kind of, you know, save his privacy or whatever. But he comes over with his boat, and we're running those little Calamus with a 50 horse on the back, and, you know, trolling for kings out in front of Anchor Point. And then he shows us a couple of fish that he caught already, and then we only hooked one and lost them. And I was like, oh, this guy, maybe he does know what he's doing. He's just a big talker, you know. And long story short, he comes on my boat the next year, and I'm fishing with him. Then he mentions that he's a sheep hunter, or he used to be a sheep hunter, guided all over Alaska. So had all kinds of moose hunting stories on the Kuskokwim, and trapping stories and all this stuff. And then stories where he guided down in southern Alaska for sheep. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool, And it's like, I was like, have you ever, hunted Wrangles or the Brooks Range? And I was like, oh yeah, I know this one area, up here where there's a glacier and all this stuff. And we used to go on horseback in there and guide. And I was like, well, did you shoot anything big? He's like, yeah, I shot a few 40-inch sheep. He said, you'd shit a chicken if you saw how close I was to these sheep. Shot them right off the horse. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like these guys are on. It's just 20 years ago shooting these big rams. And I'm like, I asked him, like, do you think they still exist back there? He's like, oh yeah, they do. He's like, well, does anybody hunt back there anymore? And he's just like, well, I don't know, but I know that some guides used to, and they probably still have rights to hunt it. But he's like, I've never heard of anybody pulling anything out of there in the last 10, 15 years. So it kind of intrigued me a little bit. And I was like, well, where did you go? Like, how did you, I was like, oh, I'm getting real hungry for it now because, he's got all this information. And, he, liked me just enough to, tell me a little bit more about where these rams might be. So, after that fall, came around, I was like, I want to try to draw for this Chugach tag again and see if I can't get a ram there. And if we don't, I'm going to try this new area and see if we can't find a big ram there. And so, tag draw came out, didn't get it. Ended up calling this guy that has the fly out service or whatever. And, started picking his brain and then, playing phone tag with a few more to see who would actually land in the lake that I wanted to land in. And then finally found a guy. And we had it booked in February. And, kind of the rest of that is history. But, yeah, so we just worked all summer and came to us before we knew it. And we were off. And, I mean, man, we got to that lake and I was just like, man, I just want to take this all in, because I was like, last time it was all about the goal. That's it. That's all it was. Yep. And I'm like, I just want to go to this lake, hang out, check it out and just, enjoy the camping experience. I brought steaks. We brought, everything. I brought way too much freaking shit on this trip. 2 belts for some reason and like sunglasses. I don't know why I brought all this garbage with me, but, ended up leaving it halfway through the hunt, which was kind of a good thing. Yeah. Ended up burning half of it. Yeah. But anyways, we get to the lake and I'm like, our main concern was possibly having more company there and get off the plane and unload our shit. And there's a couple of bear-proof boxes. Yeah. Or the containers, little, I don't know, 20-gallon containers. They were just sitting right there and I was like, God dang it. I was like, yeah, there's people in here. There's got to be people in here, this is probably their stash to come back to. Well, what I think happened is another plane had flown out earlier and dropped, got their guys and they had to go back and pick up their stuff. So we ended up getting up the hill a little bit, dropping our packs and starting to look through our spotting. So, here comes another plane. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, dude, no. Like, we should probably just, hide from this plane and see if they land in the lake. Sure enough, they land in the lake. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, we just need to get out of here because we'd already spotted one little ram.
Yeah, so that already pushed the anxiety like to the top just within a first few hours of being there because we had spotted a ram at 5 miles away. Had no idea if he was even close to full curl. But anyways, we were already in the pursuit of getting closer to see if he was a ram we wanted to go after. And just as we start off getting closer to him, this plane swoops down and lands in the lake that we just landed in. So it was like, oh my gosh.
And we huffed it quite a ways until we got to the other edge of kind of where the slope kind of came down into the valley to where we would cross over and get to the other side. And we didn't hear or see anything extra happen. We heard the plane leave and we're like, they're probably not going to, be anything to worry about ended up not being anything.
Yeah, never
But-
seen them.
Never saw him for the rest of the trip, so that was cool. And then we got on the glass and started spotting sheep on the other side from there. And then we're like, all right, well, let's sleep here and then get up the next morning, go down, which would be August 9th, day before season, and set up the main spot where we would spot our sheep from. And ended up looking for sheep across the valley there. And we had spotted a few caribou too. And that was intriguing. You're like, I wonder if there's a caribou tag here. And I was like, oh, no, it's a tier 2 thing. And
Yeah.
you ended up drawing for it this year.
Yeah,
It's like,
so after
lucky dog.
laying eyes on them and figuring out that is a dry area, and man, applied for it and got it first try.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you got to be kidding me. And then my dad draws it too, so I get to shoot a caribou too.
Yeah.
And I just got to fill out the proxy info, and there we go. Yeah, no, it's going to be great. But yeah, so anyways, back to the sheep hunt. Get in there, set up our camp, and you couldn't really have asked for much better weather. We had just a little rain the first day, like nothing,
Yeah.
and then it was sunny the next, and got on some rams. You got set up on the second camp, and you were looking out, across this valley onto this plateau, and there was quite a few rams over there, but none of them were legal, at first, and. What did we see? Like 3 that were close to full curl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
around that 3
A band of
quarter.
6 or 7 rams. Yep.
And some lambs and ewes mixed in too, right?
Yep. And they were actually scattered. When we started to look like around that back valley where at the end of the scree shoots, it's like, oh, there's a lamb and ewe right there, lamb and ewe. So it's like there must have been like 30 Dall sheep in that area
Yeah.
east.
Yeah.
And there was goats there too. So yeah, it was kind of intense. But then we kind of looked up to those little crags in the corner through the thermals, and I was like, there's a sheep right there. And I was like, take a look at that. And I don't know what you said. You were just like, oh, it doesn't look
Well, I
like
think we
anything.
both kind of looked at each other at the same time, because he was up higher than the rest of the sheep, which is kind of a typical lead ram
Yeah.
thing that they do, and we were just like, that might be the
That
one.
might be the one. Yeah. And, when the fog cleared, we were right. That
Yeah.
was a good-looking sheep. And saw some deep drops, down below the cheekbone, and then we saw the lamb tips come up a little bit, and I was like, ooh, man, I think it's close to full curl. I think it is. And, couldn't get a look at his other side for a while. He was kind of feeding, showing us his right side, and his right side was just barely full. But, at the angle, you can't tell. You kind of second guessing yourself because we had never seen a ram that was quite this size before. And then he starts feeding down to the bottom. Fog comes in and rolls around and then lifts. And then he's just kind of laying there with his head kind of cocked to the side. And then he lifts his head up and turns it. And you see that left side. And, oh, my God, it's like that's 4 inches over full curl. It's like, this is Tyrannosaurus Rex of Dall sheep. And I was like, man, we got to get this thing. And I was like, what do you think, Brando? And he was like, let's go get him.
Yeah.
And I was like, green light, let's go. So picked up our stuff and kind of moved up the hill and camped for that night. And I was like, yeah, let's just get up super early and spot him and just make sure he's there. And if it's foggy, then it's in our favor because then we're just going to run over to the other side and go up the gnarlies and get up over to the other side. And basically he was only 1 mile away from us. So to put it in perspective, it's like so close yet so far away because you have to go up the valley and you go all the way up that valley and then come back around, and it's like 4.5 miles extra.
Yep.
So we get in there and see a bunch of goats on our way through. I mean, it'd be a great place to have a goat tag too, but not when there's, sheep that are that nice in there. And we get to the creek and then you're like, hey, look, there's a ram. And I was like, oh shit. I was like hoping it wasn't the one, and it was only 300 yards away. And we got to look at him and it's like, dude, that thing looks like it's full curl.
Yeah.
And, over closer examination, he wasn't quite there, we don't think. But, that being said, it's like you see that huge one and that even though it was close to full curl, I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to give him a second look. But it just goes to show you that some of those areas, you never know what's back there. And so we ended up just continuing on, getting up the nasty stuff, loose rocks on that ridge line. It was kind of a steep ridge line to go up, and I wouldn't have originally picked that. Glad we did, because my route would have been to go up the scree chute, which would have been absolutely awful because we would have slipped back. But you said, let's pick up the rocks, rocky, edge, and, we'll have something to hold on to all the way up. And luckily you were right. Getting up there, and started to rain sideways on us. And I was like, okay, let's take a break here and, see if the weather clears.
Yeah, so we're at the top of that mountain. We are well above the sheep where we had left them last at this point. Started raining, set up the tents just to try and keep our stuff dry. And I don't know, you take it from there.
Yeah, no, it was kind of interesting at that point, because I was like starting to get cold, and then I was just like, it's like there's no water up here. And I started to grab the Nalgene's and heat up some water, and then just so I'm prepared, because I was like, the wind just wasn't right that day. So I was like, kind of preparing that we might be stuck camping on top of the mountain. Wasn't too excited about that, but and then took a nap for a minute, and then I think you went down to start spotting, and then I kind of just meandered my way down to you, and then you had already spotted the big old ram. And I set mine up right there and got the phone scope on him, and I got a little video of him, walking down to the creek until he disappeared. And then we just sat there and talked about it. It's like, man, I wonder, this wind's starting to kick up. I wonder if we shouldn't, back out and, try again another time, because it just seemed like the wind was going down to him, and it just was not a good idea.
Yeah.
It just, textbook told me no. Like, this is not, like, all my hunting experience I ever had. Like, it's an old animal who smelled everything in the book. Like, and he knows how to work it.
Yeah, he didn't get to where he's at by being a dumb animal.
Yeah, that's true,
But
that's kind of cliche, right? But it's like, it's true. And then that's what dictates your decision making. And then what happened was the wind was blowing so hard. I was like, oh shit, I left my tent like up on the peak. It's like, I don't know, 200 yards behind us. Yep. I get up there and I see your tents flapping and the wind barely holding on. Your gear was all still there. And then I saw mine just totally tore up. And then my sleeping pad, this big neon sign looking sleeping pad that NeoAir, was just flapping in the wind, just barely holding onto a rock somehow. I picked that up and then I shove it under the tent, and then, realize that my zipper's all ripped up, and I'm like, oh gosh, I got to fix this up. Now I'm staying with my cousin, and the one person is like, good Lord, so what can go wrong will, right? So, totally just kind of put that sheep out of my head for a minute and got everything together. Obviously he was out of sight, so we were fine. And then just kind of got everything together there, and, help pack Brandon's stuff up, and then I had to get back down to him, and then I was like, hey, your shit's like, tore up and all over the place. And I was like, your tent's fine though. And he's like, oh, thank God. So we get up there and gather our gear, get back on the glass, and we're just like, okay, he's right there, And then I started looking at how the wind was flowing, and then, talking myself into this bad decision to go after this ram, because it ultimately is a bad decision to go after something if the wind's kind of even general in the same direction, because by the time you get down to the valley, you don't know whether it's going left or right or up or down or what. So I was just like, I don't want to go back down the other way with a pack on right now. And I was like, if we go down this way, we can at least get camp started down this little scree chute. And I was like, let's just get down there and see how the wind's doing. So we get down there to the bottom, trying to check every step, make sure you're not, rolling an ankle or busting a knee up, whatever. And so get down there. And I'm like, oh, sweet, this wind looks like it's at our backs, kind of, but it looks like it's going down into this chute, I was thinking, I don't know why I was talking myself into it, really, because that's still not a good situation, because it's kind of angling towards where the ram is. You ideally speaking, you want it either to the side, a stiff wind, like, or just something that's just kind of coasting India, and then that's hunting 101, right? You want the wind in your face. So it didn't have that, but I was like, let's just go down into this, this chute that's right next to the side of the mountain, get down to that snow field. So we got there, started spotting, sheep, and we couldn't see the ram. And then I think you spotted something at the top of the hill, and then we quick looked with our binos and we saw him throw his head up once, and I was like, oh, that's the ram for sure, and then he kind of disappeared behind the hill. And I was like, all right, that's like 600 yards, something like that. So I got to cross about 300 yards to the creek and then 300 yards uphill to the rock. So just scrambled, got all my stuff together, just took one trekking pole, I think, with me. Or did I take anything with me? I don't think I did. Just took my gun. I think I dropped my pack in the snowfield.
Oh, I think we dropped our trekking poles.
Oh, yeah, that was right at the base of the mountain. We dropped
our packs there, dropped our trekking poles in the middle of the boulder field. That was like a mile-long boulder field.
Felt like it.
And I remember dropping layers on our way across that boulder field and everything. But
and at this point, I was kind of surprised at how good I felt. Like the training had definitely, taken got a foothold, and it was like, okay, it's like instincts are taking over now. And we had done so much running, so much hiking, and the Murphs, and, just nasty workouts just to prepare ourselves pretty much mentally for stuff like this. And, I was just like, all right, let's, get together here. You stay behind my back. You got right up to me once I crossed the snowfield, and we didn't see any sheep. So I'm like, okay, good. Coast is clear kind of. And we're just kind of scanning as we're trying to cover as much ground as possible. But I think the thing that was in our favor was the wind, because, the wind was loud, and that kind of, and it was hard. So it kind of pushed it to where we could kind of cheat it, because the wind was side hilling us at that point. So it was coming from the top and blowing down, and the sheep was ahead. So at that point, we kind of knew that we had a little bit of a window, and we got across the creek, and I just got to crawling and got to the top and couldn't see anything from there, but we knew we just had to crest a little bit. And I saw this big rock at the end, and I remembered from spotting him earlier that he had disappeared behind the rock. So thinking, if I get up to this rock, I'll peek over the edge. Ram should be maybe 100, 200 yards. So I get up there, start creeping my head up to the rock, and then all I see is, these big bases of sheep horn, and it's like literally face to face. It can't be more than 5 yards, like 15 freaking feet. And this ram just comes unglued and just bolts, and my heart just drops. And, I think I heard you go, oh my God, no, and I make sure and click the safety off real quick. I jump up, and I just kind of pulled the crosshairs through the sheep and touched a round off, throwing a prayer out there. And I missed. And I was just like, oh my God. And the sheep's headed toward the drainage. And I was like, let's get to the edge of the drainage. So, I mean, normally we don't do this, but, with a loaded gun, you're sitting there running across the tundra up the top there and getting to the edge. And got to the edge, you were right there, and I was like, I'm thinking he's 300, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just aim above his back a little bit. And then you were like, 200, and I'm like, okay, now I know where I need to shoot, so no problem. He's quartering away, and he'd stopped huffing and puffing up that hill. And as soon as he stopped, I put the crosshairs in front of his back right ham and on his shoulder, touched it off. And I'm like, I think I hit him, and he goes up the hill. And then you're like, put another one in him, put another one in him. I was like, no, I think he's going down. But he's like, no, put another one in him. And I was like struggling like crazy to get another round in him. I didn't need to necessarily, but
yeah,
I ended up getting another round in him anyways. And then he took a nosedive, and it was over. And I was just like shocked in disbelief at what had happened. I mean, that was so intense. And just the feeling of relief is just overwhelming. And I was just like, we slayed the dragon.
Yeah.
Come over there and start dry humping.
Jesus. It was so crazy. Like the last thing I wanted to feel was like heartbreak 2 years in a row, and that's what I felt after we, came eye to eye with this thing at 15 feet. Takes off running. He misses the first shot on the run, and just my heart just sank.
You can't get it.
I could barely even handle it. But we chased after him just to keep a visual on him, and after about a 300-yard sprint, or with that sheep just sprinted, he was pretty gassed, and he crossed that creek, and he looked back at us, just totally winded, and there he was at 200 there, and that next shot that Jordan took just punched him in the shoulder perfectly.
And it's weird, like it doesn't even set in when you accomplish something like that, because it's like, I like kind of more acting excited than I was like actually like excited inside, because there was so much adrenaline depleted that all you feel is relief. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like just catching my breath, and then just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
What did we just do?
Yeah.
And then I was like, turn your camera on. Let's get after this thing and get our hands on them,
Yeah.
And, I just sat there and looked at that thing, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It's over full curl by 3 inches, and my first sheep ever. And yeah, I couldn't be more grateful or thankful, for this, ram and just the experience. It's like, you can't write it up better than that. Just going after him in the mountains like a bunch of, a couple of Indians, in a buffalo kill. I mean, there was no stopping to that hunt. I mean, looking back, and next time I want to kind of enjoy a little bit more of the camp experience, right? But
exactly.
But man, when you see something like that, you just got to go. And we did it. We got it done. And then it was like looking up at the mountain, being like, well, now what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
60 pounds on our packs now, and we've got 100 pounds of meat to pack out.
Yeah. Man, after getting your hands on his horns and looking across the valley from where we were originally glassing him from, and seeing that we just came up and over and around all this stuff all in one day, capitalized, killed him. It was just like, did we just really just do that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was totally slaying the dragon, man. It was definitely a monkey off my back, and it's cool. But now it's like it was a big deal at the time, and I think it'll feel like a big deal every time I do it. But holy smokes, though, that was definitely some relief off my back. But it's kind of like it's not that hard, really. It's just that you imagine that it's hard, and when you see each mountain peak, you imagine that it's harder than it is. But you take little bites out of it, you chunk it together, and it's like, hey, you can make it.
Yeah.
It's not too bad, and we got it. But it was brutal pack out, because we had to go up an over 60-degree scree chute slope to get this thing out of there the next day. I mean, we had a beautiful night, got to sleep, rest next morning, finished cutting the meat up, divvying it up in our packs, whatever. And then I tried to lift up your pack, and I was like, you should probably give me some weight. And you were just like, no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm glad it's you and not me. Because I was like, we have to make it through these giant cobblestones. To give you perspective, like this cobblestone field we had to get to the scree chute to get over the mountain was terrible. I mean, you go up the snow slide, which is very slippery and icy underneath, get to the big cobble field, and these big stones are like 2.5 to 4 feet in size, and they're just jagged, and there's like these edges to go through, and it's just you got to be on your game, because it's like, man, you can snap like a twig, you fall in between those things.
Yeah.
So we get up to the scree chute, and chunked it together, got over the top, and it's like, we're not crossing this valley today. That's for sure. And
getting to the top of that scree chute, that was something else. So you take a step, and just like loose gravel. I mean, you lose most of every step.
One step, you lose 2.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then it's just like, oh, I need to take a rest when I get to that rock pinnacle. That'll be great.
Yep.
And then you get to that one, and all it is kind of some more it's just a bump of shale. It's not really actually a rock pinnacle. It's like, I'm going to sit on this uncomfortable boulder. It's just like, we ended up deciding, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely horrible. We took a break up top there, and I was just like, oh my God. It's just like, I don't want to pick up this pack anymore. And we've got 8 miles left.
Yeah.
So we were just like, let's get on the inReach and, texted back home. I was like, yeah, got a sheep, but I'm going to be back in like 3 days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The wind was just ripping once we did reach to the top of that. And
Yeah, we were trying to pack up these rocks around the tent to keep the wind from howling, and nothing would work. Nothing can hide you from the wind back there. It literally, if you try to block yourself from it, it'll create a tornado and try to suck you up into the sky. It feels like it's just like, what in the hurricane frick is going on here?
Yeah.
I was so frustrated. I couldn't get my tent to work, figure it out. I just kind of wrapped all my shit in it, and I was like, let's get into yours and call it a night. And,
Yeah. Starting to rain, getting dark, scrambling to get a tent set up, and
like listening to scratches on the radio all night. Like the tent was whapping in the wind and flapping in my ear all night. I was like, oh my gosh, that's pretty rough.
Would we end up being in the tent for like 18 hours or something, trying to wait out
I
that?
think it was about 14 hours. 14, 16 hours, something like that.
So basically, we got so sick and tired and bed sore of laying in the tent that we just decided to pack up and start going through the rain anyways. And with that raining for like the last 24 hours, that creek that we had originally crossed, which was borderline crossable on our way in, was now completely uncrossable on the way out.
Yeah. And that's when, the doubt kind of creeps in. Is just like, oh man, like, well, we got them. We're going to get out eventually, but it's just like, oh, I don't want to go this direction. I'd rather just camp out and eat this old sheep right here and then, like a wolf, and then just go. But, it's like, all the training we did, it was like, this is where it comes in and comes to play, because it's like that quote, you fall to the training, to the lowest level of training that you've done when you're at your worst. So it's like, we didn't have any energy left, and it's like, you got to throw this pack on and go up to the base of the lake at the top of the valley, which was an extra mile, to this 8 mile, trek back home. And, we ended up doing it. I just saw the look on your face when I was like, we can't cross the creek. And you're just like, dude, like, I'm not going up. Like, and I was like, yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah.
And you were just like, I'll screw my life right now. I want to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get up there and ended up getting to the lake. And I think I kind of lost you for like, 5 minutes there or something. But I ended up finding you real easy. Kind of split up there for a second. But and we got back and made it to our original camp spot and just had an epic peak dinner there, and got to look at our ram and the sunset sitting on a rock, and it was like, holy crap, we're actually going to make it to this lake and get home. It was like, my goodness.
Crossing that creek, that was a very good feeling to me. I was like, okay, that's the last thing that could seriously like potentially kill us
or stop us from getting home in some way.
So that felt good, and so that was.
And where you crossed was like deep, like you were in past your underwear.
It wasn't much better than where we initially tried crossing. Like, it was, trekking poles are just vibrating in the current, like ready to take me down.
Yeah.
But oh my god,
it was still good. You still made it.
Oh man,
I knew you had it. I was like, yeah, he's got it. He's gonna make it.
If I hadn't had that sheep in that backpack, it probably would have swept me.
Yeah. There's something about that. It's like, yeah, the pack is super heavy, but you're so glad that you got a ram that you'll go through anything to pack that stupid thing home, because you don't got anything to think about anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah.
I'm just saying the extra weight of that sheep grounding me to the bottom of that riverbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was either gonna ground you or drown you.
No kidding.
Holy smokes! But yeah, we ended up getting down and getting delirious halfway through the third day, and we were just laughing at each other's retarded jokes, and Cousin was like, I was like, I got one for you. I was like, I'm gonna get you a shirt. It says my cousin says yes, and you just about died.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there laughing at that creek, and got finally across it and came to the lake, and yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird because we got to that lake and I was just like, man, like it feels like this should be getting closer because we can see it, but it just so close yet so far away for some reason. And I was just like, man, alder patch after alder patch after alder patch, and you just like sink and like hoping your knee doesn't buckle. And yeah, I finally made it to this little cobblestone creek bed, and worked our way down to the lake. And I was just like, damn, like I finally made it. Like that's what was crazy. That's the crazy part is like after the sheep, I thought, yeah, that's when my emotions are gonna be all over the place, whatever. Nope, because I knew, we had such a hard pack out. I was like, I just need to get out alive now. So, putting all that together kept my emotions at bay. But then I was just like, once we got to that lake, it just hit me. I was just like, oh my God, I just accomplished my uncle's dream, and man, that was heavy in one moment. I just had to like sit down by myself. It's like, just don't sit here and bawl your eyes out. Don't be that guy, and I was just like, but, just thinking about where I had come from, the weight that I had lost, and then, just that this meant so much, to my uncle and everything. It was just incredible. And, obviously to have family in on the trip too and have you there was amazing, but it was just like, I cannot believe that just happened, and then just packing up your gear and then watching the lake disappear behind us. I was like, is this my real life right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you think
looking
that
at the sheep in the back of the plane and just looking at the lake and the goats, and I'm just like, we're done. We did it.
Yeah.
We're out of here. We're gonna live.
you don't think that pack out's ever gonna end, and then you're in that plane heading out of there, and it's all over too soon.
Yeah. You want back into the mountains just as bad as you want out of them.
Yeah.
So that's it. Falls Peak.
Yeah. Well,
That's our mantra, man. It's like, you think something's around the corner, and then it's just like, no, you've got a few more to go.
Yep.
So you never know which peak is the one you're gonna get. But
so what'd that sheep end up scoring?
oh yeah, I laid out the chart and the tape and measured out at 39 inches. Yeah, I went back to my buddies that told me about this area to end the trip. We drove up to his house and said, you got to see this ram. And he's like, what did you do? And, and he was like, you're going to make me sick, aren't you? And I'm like, I might just make you sick. And he brought out his little, sewing tape or whatever and put the tape on. I was at 39 and 5/8 actually, 39 and 5/8. He said, you just killed a 40-inch ram. And he's like, that's ridiculous. This thing's world class. And I was like, maybe, I don't know. And he was right. I ended up looking at it in the Boone and Crockett record books, the scoring, and I scored it myself, followed their formula. Ended up being 164 and 3/8 when you measure out both sides with 14 and a half inch bases. And that's crazy because you see a lot of full curls come out of, Brooks Range and then where we were at. And it was like, you didn't really get over 12 to 13 inch bases very much. And this guy looks like a bighorn sheep on top.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what I did. Still hardly even believe it, even though I can sit here and, fondle it every day.
Heck of a ram.
Yeah. He was a beast for sure. Yeah. But I'm not going to enter him in the books, man. Cause it's just like, I don't know, unless I get something that's more closer to that, like top tier, top 10 or something, then I might be like, yeah, I'm interested in, putting this in the record books, but it's not really about that, right? And I don't know, it's kind of a popular thing now to talk about trophy hunting and the fact that, the trophy is not necessarily the number that it is out there, because that just ruin every hunt. The trophy is that you shot an old animal, and that's that, and we freaking did it. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, we need to take this to the chopping block, and maybe I'll do a carving on sheep camp, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I do on the side is chainsaw carving here in Alaska, and That's kind of one of the things that we do with this podcast. We'll talk about these stories and bring them to the chopping block and create a sculpture for you to look at. And it's kind of a different spin-off of things. And it's something that I do on the side to support my love for the adventures that we take. And, it's kind of a cool thing. It's different than taxidermy. I also do little Euro pedestals and stuff for these sheep mounts and things too. So if you're interested in something a little bit different, something aside from, regular taxidermy, you don't want something staring at you or the wife, pick out, something that's on my list of carvings that I do. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, until next time here, we'll keep you in tune with the next story and keep you up to date on what we're doing to prepare for that next hunt.
Right on.
All right.
We'll get into more gear reviews and stuff like that later.
Falls Peak out.
Falls Peak out.